Park Jiho stood at the viewing window of the transport ship, his eyes wide as the planet Aquarius came into view. The world was mostly blue, covered by vast oceans that glittered in the light of its twin suns. White clouds swirled across its surface, in strange patterns unlike any weather system on Earth. "First time seeing Aquarius?" asked the transport pilot, an orange-skinned alien with 4 eyes. "First time off Earth, actually," Jiho replied. The pilot made a clicking sound that Jiho had learned was alien laughter. "Well, human, you picked quite the place to start. The Galactic Academy is the top school in 12-star systems." Jiho nodded, gripping his small bag of belongings tighter. He was the first human ever accepted to the Galactic Academy of Sciences and Defense. At 22, he was older than most first-year cadets, but Earth had only joined the Galactic Union 3 years ago. Humans were still proving themselves to the older spacefaring races. The transport ship dipped lower, passing through layers of pink-tinged clouds. When they cleared, Jiho gasped. The Academy wasn't on land as he had expected. It floated on massive platforms above the ocean, a sprawling complex of silver buildings and blue energy fields that shimmered in the sunlight. "It's floating," he said. "Of course it is," the pilot replied. "Most of Aquarius is too deep for building on the seafloor, and the few land masses are too small and unstable. The Academy moves with the currents to avoid the worst storms." The ship landed on a circular pad marked with symbols Jiho still struggled to read. His translator implant helped with spoken languages, but written text was harder. He would need to study. "Welcome to the Galactic Academy of Sciences and Defense," announced a voice as he stepped off the ship. "Please proceed to orientation." Jiho followed the lighted path to a large dome where dozens of aliens from different species gathered. Some had multiple limbs, others had scales or feathers, and a few seemed to float rather than walk. Jiho was the only human. "You must be the Earth student," said a tall, thin alien with pale blue skin. "I am Administrator Quan. I oversee first-year cadets." "Park Jiho," he said, bowing slightly. "Thank you for the opportunity to study here." Quan's face didn't show much expression, but his voice sounded doubtful. "Yes, well, the Union Council insisted we include humans in our exchange program. Your species is young compared to others here. We have a lot to learn," Jiho agreed, keeping his voice polite though he felt his face grow warm. "But we may have something to offer too." "We shall see," Quan said. "Your living assignment is Dorm 12, Room 7. Your roommates have been informed of your special needs." Jiho wanted to ask what special needs meant, but Quan had already moved on to greet other new students. With a sigh, Jiho followed the map on his datapad to Dorm 12. The room was larger than he expected, with 4 sleeping pods instead of beds. 3 were clearly occupied, with personal items floating in gravity fields beside them. The 4th pod was empty, with a standard-issue Academy uniform and datapad waiting on it. "So they really did assign us a human," said a voice. Jiho turned to see 3 aliens entering the room. The one who had spoken was tall with green-gold skin that seemed to glow slightly. He had no hair, just a pattern of darker green spots across his scalp. "I am Tay," the green alien said. "Top of my class on Floruvia and specialized in quantum mathematics." He didn't offer any gesture of greeting. The second alien was shorter, with 4 arms and silver-gray skin. "I am Suk," she said in a precise voice. "Zentari Engineering Corps, specialized in propulsion systems." She touched her forehead in what Jiho recognized as a Zentari greeting. The third alien was the strangest looking, with purple skin and 6 thin tentacle-like limbs instead of arms. "Day," he said simply. "Communications." He made a swirling motion with 2 tentacles that Jiho didn't understand. "Park Jiho," he said, bowing to each of them. "Earth. My focus is on engineering and survival systems." Tay made a sound like air escaping from a balloon. "Survival systems? You mean like making fires and building shelters? How primitive." "Every ship needs backup systems," Jiho said calmly. "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most reliable." "That's what species say when they haven't mastered proper technology," Suk remarked. "No offense intended." None taken, Jiho lied. We all have different strengths. What exactly are human strengths? Asked Day, his tentacles twisting in apparent curiosity. I've studied many species, but humans are new to the database. Before Jiho could answer, a chime sounded throughout the room. All first-year cadets report to main hall for commanders. Address, announced a voice. We'll continue this fascinating anthropological discussion later, Tay said with clear sarcasm. Let's not be late for Commander June. He has very strong opinions about punctuality. The main hall was enormous, with seating for thousands of cadets. Jiho followed his roommates to a section designated for first years. As they sat, he noticed other students staring at him and whispering to each other. A hush fell over the crowd as a stern-looking alien in a decorated uniform strode onto the raised platform at the front. He had dark gray skin with ridges along his forehead and jaw. I am Commander June, he announced, his voice echoing through the hall without need of amplification. For most of you, the next 4 years will be the most challenging of your lives. You will be pushed beyond what you think are your limits. Many of you will fail. His eyes scanned the crowd and seemed to stop on Jiho. The Academy accepts only the best from each world. You are here because your species has proven its value to the Galactic Union. You are here to learn, but also to demonstrate why your kind deserves its place among the stars. Jiho felt the weight of those words. Earth was still proving itself. His success or failure would affect how the galaxy viewed all humans. This term includes our first human cadet, Commander June continued, confirming Jiho's fears. The Union Council believes in giving all intelligent species a chance to contribute. Time will tell if this was wise. Whispers rippled through the crowd again. Jiho kept his face calm despite the embarrassment of being singled out. Classes begin tomorrow at first light. Schedules are on your data pads. Dismissed. As students began to file out, an alien cadet roughly bumped into Jiho's shoulder. Watch where you're going, Earth Dirt, the cadet muttered. Don't mind Hawk, said Day, tentacles moving agitatedly. He's from Meritus. They think everyone is beneath them. I'm used to it, Jiho said. When Earth first contacted the Union, we had a lot to prove. Still do, apparently. Your kind is young, Suk said matter-of-factly. Many here come from civilizations thousands of years older than yours. Their ships traveled the stars when humans were still using combustion engines. That doesn't mean we can't learn quickly, Jiho replied. Tay floated slightly above the floor as they walked back to their dorm, a natural ability of his species that he seemed to enjoy showing off. We'll see, he said. First water training is tomorrow. I hope you can swim, human. Aquarius doesn't forgive those who can't adapt to its oceans. Jiho thought of the mountains and forests where he had trained back on Earth, so different from this water world. But he smiled confidently. Don't worry about me, he said. Humans are very good at adapting. It's how we survived on Earth for so long without all your advanced technology. That night, as his roommates slept in their pods, Jiho looked out the window at the dark waters surrounding the academy. In the distance, lightning flashed in swirling clouds unlike any storm on Earth. He was a stranger here, the only one of his kind, trying to prove that humans belonged among the stars. But Park Jiho had never backed down from a challenge, and he wasn't about to start now. 3 months had passed since Jiho arrived at the Galactic Academy. He had learned to navigate the floating campus, mastered the basics of alien technology, and even earned reluctant respect in some of his classes. His wilderness survival course, which most alien cadets had taken as an easy elective, had become unexpectedly popular when Instructor Cho discovered Jiho's extensive knowledge. The human knows more practical survival methods than the textbook, Instructor Cho had announced. Her 4 eyes blinking in surprise when Jiho demonstrated how to purify water using only sunlight in clear containers. But despite small victories, Jiho still felt like an outsider. Commander June watched him with obvious doubt during training exercises. His roommate Tay still made comments about primitive human methods, and most cadets from advanced worlds avoided sitting with him during meals. Don't take it personally, Day told him one morning as they prepared for the day's training exercise. The purple-skinned alien's 6 tentacles moved quickly, packing equipment into his bag. Most species here evolved in much harsher conditions than humans. They think Earth was too easy, so humans are soft. Earth wasn't easy, Jiho replied, checking his own gear. We had predators, diseases, natural disasters. We survived because we adapted. Well, today you get to prove it, Suk said, entering the room. Her forearms moved with perfect efficiency as she organized her supplies. Commander June is taking us to the outer training island. The weather report shows possible atmospheric disturbance. Jiho looked out the window. The twin suns of Aquarius were barely visible through swirling clouds that had turned an unusual shade of green. Those clouds don't look right, he said. Tay floated into the room, his green-gold skin glowing brighter than usual. Weather control says it's within acceptable parameters. Just a level 2 storm system. You seem excited, Jiho observed. Floruvians thrive in water, Tay said proudly. While the rest of you struggle, I'll be perfectly comfortable. We evolved in oceans much rougher than anything on Aquarius. But you hate getting wet, Jiho pointed out, remembering how Tay always used the sonic cleaner instead of water showers. Tay's glow dimmed slightly. I appreciate water. From a distance, the announcement system chimed. All third-level cadets, report to Transport Bay 4 for today's field exercise. 20 cadets gathered at the Transport Bay, representing 12 different species. Commander June stood before them, his gray face even more stern than usual. Today's exercise tests your ability to operate Academy equipment in less than ideal conditions, he announced. You will travel to Outer Training Island, 20 kilometers from the main campus. There you will assemble emergency shelters, establish communications, and complete survey tasks. He paused, looking directly at Jiho. This exercise separates those who rely on technology from those who understand it. Those who master technology survive. Those who fear it perish. Jiho kept his face neutral even though he understood the message. Commander June still thought humans were technologically backward. The transport ship carried them low over increasingly rough waters. Through the viewing windows, Jiho watched as waves grew larger and dark clouds gathered overhead. Lightning flashed in the distance. That storm is moving faster than predicted, said a yellow-skinned cadet with antenna-like sensors on his head. Weather control has it handled, Commander June replied confidently. This is why we train in real conditions. The ship landed on a small island with a simple research station, a low gray building surrounded by strange blue plants. As cadets disembarked, the wind whipped around them, much stronger than the level 2 storm they had expected. Set up. Communications array first, Commander June ordered. Standard protocol. You have 1 hour before I return to the main campus. Complete your tasks and signal when ready for pickup. Several cadets looked concerned as the commander boarded the transport ship alone. He's leaving us here? Asked a small green cadet. It's a standard self-reliance test, Suk explained. We establish our base while the commanding officer observes remotely. The transport ship rose into the darkening sky and disappeared into the clouds. The cadets broke into teams as they had practiced, with Jiho assigned to help set up the power system with Suk. As they worked, the wind grew stronger. Rain began to fall, not the light drizzle that was common on Aquarius, but heavy drops that hit with surprising force. This doesn't match weather parameters, Suk said, her voice concerned, as she checked readings on her datapad. Storm intensity is increasing to level 4. A crack of thunder shook the ground. Several cadets looked up nervously. Communications array is online, called Day, his tentacles working multiple controls at once. Attempting to contact Academy. Command. Jiho helped Suk finish connecting the power cells, then walked to the edge of the island. What he saw made his heart beat faster. The water level was rising rapidly. Waves crashed higher up the shore than when they had landed, already reaching the blue plants that had been several meters from the water's edge. We need to contact weather control, he said, returning to the group. The water is rising too fast. Day's tentacles moved frantically over the communication panel. No response from command. I'm getting interference. A brilliant flash of lightning struck the communications array, sending sparks flying. Dai jerked back, two of his tentacles singed. "Communications down," he shouted. Tay, who had been monitoring the weather sensors, rushed over with his data pad. "Weather control systems are offline. This storm isn't being managed anymore." For a moment, all 20 cadets stared at each other in shock. Their training had taught them to rely on Aquarius's advanced weather control technology. No one had planned for it to fail completely. "Emergency protocols," Suk announced, taking charge. "We activate the emergency beacon and wait for rescue." The cadets rushed to follow standard procedure, but Jiho stood still, watching the water. It had risen another half-meter in just minutes. The island was mostly flat, with the research station as the only high point. "The beacon isn't working either," reported a frustrated cadet. "Same interference affecting all transmissions." "Automatic rescue systems will activate when they detect the emergency," Suk insisted. "Academy protocol state." Another lightning strike hit nearby, cutting her off. The ground shook and part of the shoreline collapsed into the water. "We need to move to higher ground," Jiho said firmly. "The station building is the only safe place if this keeps up." Some cadets looked to Suk or Tay for confirmation, unsure about taking advice from the human. "The human is right," Tay admitted, his green-gold skin now pale with fear as he watched the rising water. Though Floruvians could float, Jiho had learned that Tai had nearly drowned as a child and feared deep water. "Get everything inside the station, now." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Rain pounded the metal roof of the station as cadets brought in all the equipment they could carry. The wind howled, bending the strange blue plants until they touched the ground. And the water kept rising. By nightfall, the island was half submerged. The automatic rescue crafts had not appeared. "They should have come by now," Day said, his voice trembling as he looked out the window. "The Academy emergency protocols are the best in the galaxy." "Maybe the whole weather system is damaged," suggested another cadet. "Maybe they can't launch rescue ships in this storm." "So we're trapped," Tay said, floating anxiously near the ceiling, as far from the windows as possible. Jiho watched the water creep higher up the walls of the station. At this rate, the building would be flooded by morning. The alien cadets argued about technological solutions, trying to boost the signal, reprogramming the beacon, finding ways to interface with weather control. None of it would work in time, Jiho realized. And when the water reached the station's power cells, they might short out, leaving them in darkness. Quietly, while the others debated, Jiho began to gather materials. Empty storage containers, pieces of furniture, tools, anything that might float. "What are you doing, human?" asked a cadet as Jiho collected thermal wrapping material from emergency kits. "Making a backup plan," Jiho replied simply. "Sometimes, technology fails. When it does, you need something simpler." The cadet looked confused but went back to the group, still trying to boost the emergency signal. Outside, the storm raged on, and the waters of Aquarius continued to rise, dark and hungry, beneath the flashes of lightning. Dawn broke over Aquarius, but the cadets inside the research station could hardly tell. Dark storm clouds blocked the twin suns, and rain continued to pound the metal roof. The water had risen throughout the night and now lapped at the doorway of the station. "We need to move to the roof," Suk announced, her forearms gesturing at the ceiling. "The building will flood soon." The cadets gathered what supplies they could and climbed through a maintenance hatch onto the flat roof of the station. From this higher vantage point, they could see the full extent of their situation. The island was gone. Only the top of the research station remained above water, like a small metal island in a vast angry sea. "Where is Jiho?" Day asked suddenly, his purple tentacles twisting in agitation. "Has anyone seen the human?" The cadets looked around. The human was indeed missing. "He was gathering items last night," one cadet recalled. "Maybe he's still inside." "I'll check," Tay volunteered, eager to use his natural floating ability. He opened the hatch and descended back into the station, returning moments later with a troubled expression. "He's not there," Tay reported. Many things are missing too. Storage containers, furniture pieces, emergency supplies. Did he try to swim back to the academy? Asked a small green cadet with wide eyes. Impossible, Suk replied. It's 20 kilometers through storm-tossed waters. No human could survive that. Tay's skin paled to a sickly yellow-green. Maybe the water already. No one wanted to finish the thought. Despite their differences, none of them wished harm on their human classmate. The primitive species always fall first, said a tall cadet from a world known for its harsh environment. They rely on instinct rather than intelligence. That's not fair, Day objected. Jiho was smart. Look, interrupted a cadet with enhanced vision pointing to the horizon. There's something out there. The cadet squinted through the rain. In the distance, a shape moved across the water, drawing closer to the submerged station. Is it a rescue craft? Someone asked hopefully. Too small, Suk said using a viewing scope. And it's not powered, it's just floating. As the object drew nearer, the cadets could make out its strange form. It was flat and rectangular, made of what looked like pieces of the station's furniture and empty storage containers bound together. A figure stood on it, using a long pole to push through the water. It's Jiho, Day exclaimed, his tentacles waving excitedly. The human is alive. The makeshift craft approached the station, moving slowly but steadily against the wind and waves. Now they could all see Jiho clearly, soaking wet but standing firmly on what appeared to be a homemade raft. He guided it alongside the building and called up to them. Is everyone okay? The cadets stared in disbelief. While they had spent the night arguing about technological solutions and waiting for rescue, Jiho had built a boat using only what he could find. What is that thing? Asked the tall cadet who had dismissed humans earlier. It's called a raft, Jiho explained, securing it to the building with a length of cable. Humans have been making them for thousands of years. But how does it work? Suk asked, her analytical mind trying to understand. There's no power source, no propulsion system. It floats because air is trapped in these containers, Jiho said, patting the sealed storage units that formed the base of his raft. I sealed everything with thermal wrapping to make it waterproof. The pole is for steering and pushing. The cadets looked confused by such a simple explanation. In their advanced worlds, even the most basic transportation used complex technology. That can't possibly be stable or safe, Tay said, eyeing the raft with suspicion. A large wave rocked the station, and water washed over the edge of the roof. Several cadets cried out in alarm. We don't have much choice, Jiho said calmly. This roof will be underwater soon. The raft can hold us, but we need to go now. The cadets looked at each other uncertainly. Trust their lives to this primitive floating platform made of scavenged parts? It went against everything they had been taught about safety and reliable technology. Another wave hit, bigger than the last. Water covered their feet. I'll go first, Dave volunteered, moving toward the edge of the roof. Jiho helped the purple alien onto the raft, showing him where to sit to maintain balance. The raft dipped slightly but remained stable. It's holding, Day called to the others. It's actually working. One by one, the cadets climbed down onto Jiho's creation. The raft sat lower in the water with each new passenger, but the human had built it well. Suk was particularly interested in how Jiho had tied everything together, using techniques she had never seen before. This knot pattern distributes tension evenly, she observed as he secured a nervous cadet in place. It's surprisingly effective engineering. We call it a square lashing, Jiho explained. Sailors on Earth used it for centuries. Tay was the last one still on the roof, his body hovering anxiously above the water that now covered the station. Almost completely. I can't, he said, trembling visibly. I'll just float alongside. My species can... You can float, but for how long? Jiho asked gently. Can you sleep while floating? Can you float for days if necessary? Tay's glow dimmed further. No, he admitted. Then you need the raft too, Jiho said, extending his hand. I promise it will hold you. With great reluctance, Tay allowed Jiho to help him onto the raft. The Florivian sat rigidly in the center as far from the edges as possible. With all 20 cadets aboard, Jiho untied the cable and pushed away from the submerged station. The raft was crowded but floated well, its surface staying above the waves. "How do we get back to the academy?" asked a cadet. "We follow the current," Jiho said, using his pole to steer. The main floating campus is anchored in place, but it controls the ocean currents around it to prevent drift. Those current patterns will lead us in the right direction. The cadets looked at him with new respect. Even in a crisis without technology, the human understood how to navigate using only natural forces. "In the meantime," Jiho continued, "we need to improve our raft. I built it quickly, but we can make it better." He showed them how to use pieces of metal as paddles and how to create a small shelter in the center using the remaining thermal wrapping. The aliens, with their various physical abilities, proved to be good workers once they understood what to do. Day's 6 tentacles were perfect for tying knots. Suk's forearms could hold multiple parts in place at once. Even Tay, despite his fear, contributed by using his natural bioelectric field to seal tears in the thermal wrapping. "This is nothing like academy training," Suk commented as she helped secure the shelter. "We learn emergency protocols, but they all involve technology." "Sometimes the oldest solutions are the most reliable," Jiho replied. Humans learned that the hard way. As the day wore on, the storm began to ease slightly. The rain lightened and brief patches of sunlight broke through the clouds. The raft moved steadily through the water, guided by Jiho's understanding of wind and current. The alien cadets, who had initially viewed human methods as primitive, now watched with growing appreciation as Jiho's simple solutions kept them alive. When water splashed onto the raft, he showed them how to bail it out using helmets. When the sun emerged, he taught them how to capture rainwater for drinking. By evening, as the twin suns set behind the storm clouds, the mood on the raft had changed. Fear remained, but there was also a new sense of confidence. "Do you think the academy is searching for us?" asked a small green cadet as night fell. "I'm sure they are," Jiho said reassuringly, "but until they find us, we'll keep ourselves safe. That's what survival is about. Not just waiting for rescue, but helping yourself." Tay, who had been quiet for hours, suddenly spoke up. "I was wrong about humans," he admitted. "I thought your lack of advanced technology made you weaker, but today it made you stronger." Jiho smiled slightly as he continued to guide the raft through the dark waters of Aquarius. "Technology is a tool," he said, "and like any tool, it's important to know when to use it and when to set it aside." The first night on the raft was difficult. Rain continued to fall, though not as heavily as before. The 20 cadets huddled together under the small shelter Jiho had built in the center of the raft. Most of them were uncomfortable, wet, and afraid, but they were alive. As morning came, the clouds began to break. One of Aquarius's twin suns peeked through, casting orange light across the water. Jiho was already awake, checking the raft for damage and watching the horizon. "Did you sleep at all?" Suk asked, her forearms stretching as she emerged from the shelter. "A little," Jiho replied. "I wanted to make sure we stayed on course." "And did we?" she asked. Jiho pointed to a distant speck of light that flashed rhythmically. "See that beacon? It's one of the navigation markers for ships approaching the academy. We're heading in the right direction." The other cadets began to wake, their various species responding differently to the night spent on water. Tay looked particularly unwell, his normally glowing skin dull and patchy. "How much longer?" he asked weakly. His fear of water had made it impossible for him to sleep. "At this rate, 3 more days," Jiho estimated. "But we can improve our speed." He showed the cadets how to make simple paddles using pieces of metal they had salvaged. With everyone working together, the raft began to move faster. "The current is helping us," Jiho explained as they paddled. "The Academy's control systems create a constant flow toward the main campus. Even without power, we can use that to our advantage." Around midday, they encountered their first major challenge. The water ahead began to churn violently, forming a swirling pattern that pulled small debris into its center. "What is that?" asked a nervous cadet. A whirlpool, Jiho said grimly. The storm must have damaged the current control systems. We need to avoid it. The cadets paddled harder, trying to steer around the dangerous water, but the pull was strong, gradually drawing them closer to the spinning vortex. We won't make it, Tay cried, his fear evident as he gripped the raft tightly. Jiho thought quickly. We need an anchor to stop our drift, he announced. Something heavy we can drop into the water that will hold us in place until the whirlpool dissipates. But we have nothing heavy enough, Suk objected, looking around at their limited supplies. We can make something, Jiho insisted. He pointed to the metal frame that supported their shelter. If we bundle enough metal pieces together and tie them to our longest cable, it might hold us. The cadets worked rapidly, dismantling part of their shelter and binding metal rods and plates together. Day used his tentacles to tie the most complex knots, creating a makeshift grappling hook at the end of the bundle. When it was ready, Jiho threw the improvised anchor as far as he could, away from the whirlpool. It sank quickly and the cable went taut as it caught on something below the surface. The raft's movement toward the whirlpool slowed, then stopped. It's working, Day exclaimed, his tentacles quivering with excitement. For an hour they held position, watching as the whirlpool gradually lost power and dispersed. When it was safe, they retrieved their anchor and continued on their journey. How did you know to do that? Asked a small green cadet who had been quietly observing Jiho. Sailors on Earth have used anchors for thousands of years, Jiho explained. Sometimes the simplest tools are the most useful. The day continued with more challenges. The raft began to leak as water seeped through the thermal wrapping that sealed the bottom. Jiho showed the cadets how to bail water using their helmets. He also taught them how to patch holes using small pieces of wrapping heated and pressed into place. Your species must face many disasters to develop such knowledge, observed, an insect-like cadet with translucent wings. Earth can be dangerous, Jiho agreed. Floods, fires, storms, we've learned to survive them all. As the second night approached, another problem arose. Without technology, they had no lights to see by in the darkness. Aquarius had no moon, and cloud cover still blocked many of the stars. We won't be able to navigate at night, Suk pointed out. We could drift off course or hit debris. We need to be able to see the navigation beacon, Jiho agreed. He dug through their remaining supplies and found a small emergency kit with chemical light sticks. These won't last long, Tay said, examining one of the sticks. Maybe 4 hours. At most. Then we'll need something else for later, Jiho replied. He took a piece of metal and a tool from the emergency kit. Working carefully, he created a small bowl. Then he filled it with a small amount of water and found a slightly magnetic piece of equipment. What are you making? Day asked, his tentacles curling with curiosity. A compass, Jiho explained. If I magnetize this metal and float it in water, it will point toward the Academy's main power core. The core generates a magnetic field stronger than this planet's natural field. The alien cadets watched in amazement as the simple device worked. The magnetized metal turned slowly in the water until it pointed directly toward the distant beacon they had seen earlier. Now we can navigate even without seeing the beacon, Jiho said. Night fell, and the cadets took turns keeping watch and paddling. Despite the darkness, they maintained their course thanks to Jiho's compass. The third day dawned clearer than the previous two. The storm had mostly passed, though the water levels remained high. In the distance, they could see floating debris, pieces of trees, plants, and even parts of small structures that had been swept away by the flood. Look, Suk said suddenly, pointing ahead. There's something moving out there. They all strained to see. About half a kilometer away, several figures clung to a large piece of floating debris, what appeared to be part of a small boat. More cadets, Day exclaimed. They must have been caught in the storm too. Jiho directed their raft toward the stranded cadets. As they got closer, they could see 5 aliens holding onto the broken piece of boat, looking exhausted and frightened. Help! Called one of them, a cadet with blue scales and webbed hands. Even with their webbed hands, the water-adapted alien couldn't swim properly in the churning flood waters. Jiho steered the raft alongside the debris. "We'll take you aboard," he called to the stranded cadets. Tay moved next to Jiho and spoke quietly. "Our raft is already crowded. We calculated its capacity precisely for 20. 5 more will put us over the safe limit." "We can't leave them," Jiho insisted. "If we take them all, we might all sink," Suk added, her logical mind calculating the risks. "Each cadet should be evaluated for their value to the Academy," suggested another alien. "We take the most essential ones first." Jiho looked at them in shock. "We're taking all of them," he said firmly. "But the raft," Tay began. "Can be expanded," Jiho interrupted. He pointed to the debris the stranded cadets were holding. "We can attach that broken boat piece to our raft. With proper lashing, it will increase our capacity." The aliens looked doubtful, but Jiho was already working. He showed them how to use cables to secure the broken boat to their raft, creating a larger, more stable platform. When it was ready, they helped the stranded cadets aboard. "Thank you," said the blue-scaled alien as Jiho pulled him onto the expanded raft. "We thought we would die out here." "No one gets left behind," Jiho replied simply. With 25 cadets now aboard, the expanded raft sat lower in the water, but remained stable. Jiho redistributed weight carefully and showed the new cadets how to help with paddling and bailing. As the day continued, their progress was steady. The Academy's main campus was still not visible, but the navigation beacon grew brighter. They were getting closer. "Your solution defied the mathematical limitations," Suk said to Jiho as they paddled. "According to Academy formulas, this raft should not support 25 cadets." "Human formulas include a factor for cooperation," Jiho replied with a small smile. "Working together, we can do more than any formula predicts." The alien cadets, both old and new, looked at the human with growing respect. On this journey, Jiho had shown them something they had never learned in their advanced technological worlds, that survival wasn't just about having the right equipment, but about having the right mindset. As the suns began to set on their 3rd day at sea, a cheer went up from the front of the raft. In the distance, they could finally see the gleaming structures of the Galactic Academy, floating majestically above the water. "We're almost home," Day said, his tentacles waving happily. Jiho nodded, continuing to guide their strange craft toward safety. The journey wasn't over yet, but the hardest part was behind them. The morning sun glinted off the metal and glass buildings of the Galactic Academy as Jiho and the 24 alien cadets paddled the final stretch toward the floating campus. After 3 days on the open water, surviving on collected rainwater, and emergency rations, they were exhausted but alive. Academy patrol ships spotted them when they were still 2 kilometers out. The sleek vessels raced across the water toward the strange raft, their engines humming with advanced technology that seemed almost magical after days of manual paddling. "Cadets identified," called a voice over a speaker as the first patrol ship pulled alongside them. "Medical teams are standing by, prepare for rescue." The officers aboard the patrol ship stared in amazement at the homemade raft that had carried 25 cadets safely through one of the worst storms in Aquaris's recent history. "Who built this?" asked an officer with captain's insignia, her blue skin matching the water around them. "Jiho did," Day answered before anyone else could speak, his purple tentacles gesturing toward the human. "He saved us all." The rescue team helped the tired cadets onto the patrol ships. Medical personnel checked each one for injuries, providing nutrient supplements and hydration. Jiho was the last to leave the raft, taking a moment to look back at the simple craft that had served them so well. "We should preserve it," Suk suggested, standing beside him on the patrol ship's deck. "For the Academy Museum, as an example of alternative engineering." Jiho smiled but shook his head. "It served its purpose," he said. "Let it go." As the patrol ship sped toward the Academy, the raft was left behind, gradually drifting apart, as the waves reclaimed its components. At the main docking bay, a crowd had gathered to witness the cadets' return. News of their survival and unusual rescue craft had spread quickly. Commander June stood at the front, his gray face unreadable as the bedraggled group disembarked from the patrol ships. 25 cadets accounted for, reported the captain, to Commander June. All alive. 20 from the original training group plus 5 others they rescued from Outpost 7. Commander June's eyes widened slightly, the only indication of his surprise. Outpost 7 was completely destroyed by the storm, he said. All communication systems failed. We thought those cadets were lost. The commander's gaze found Jiho, who stood quiet and exhausted among the alien cadets. For a long moment they looked at each other in silence. Cadet Park, Commander June finally said. Report to my office when you have been cleared by medical. The rest of you get food and rest. Classes are suspended for 3 days. The cadets were led away to the medical center, where they were examined more thoroughly. Despite their ordeal, most had suffered only minor injuries, sunburn, dehydration, and exhaustion. Tay was treated for severe anxiety, his fear of water having taken a psychological toll. After being cleared by the medical staff, Jiho made his way to Commander June's office. The long corridors of the academy, with their clean lines and humming technology, felt strange after days on the open water. The commander's office door slid open automatically as Jiho approached. Inside, Commander June stood looking out a large window at the still-flooded landscape of Aquarius. Enter Cadet Park, he said without turning around. Jiho stood at attention, as Academy protocol required. The weather control systems failed completely, Commander June said, still looking out the window. A cascade error that our engineers never anticipated. When it happened, we lost contact with 73 cadets at various training locations. He turned to face Jiho. 48 have been rescued by Academy ships, 25 returned on a raft made of furniture and storage containers. There was a question in his voice. Yes, sir, Jiho confirmed. Explain your thinking, cadet. Jiho considered his words carefully. When the communications failed and the water started rising, I knew we needed a way to float. The technology wasn't working, so I used what was available. A primitive solution, Commander June observed. An appropriate solution, Jiho corrected. Respectfully. Sometimes simple is better than complex, especially in emergencies. Commander June was silent for a moment, studying the human cadet. Your fellow cadets have been quite vocal about your actions. They say you showed exceptional leadership and ingenuity. We all worked together, sir. I just provided the initial idea. An idea that saved 25 lives. The commander walked to his desk and activated a display. Images appeared showing the raft from the patrol ship's cameras. Our engineers are puzzled by the effectiveness of your design. It should not have been stable enough to cross 20 kilometers of open water in storm conditions. With respect, sir, your engineers calculate based on materials and physics. They don't factor in human determination. For the first time since Jiho had known him, Commander June's stern face showed a hint of a smile. Perhaps that is something we should learn to calculate. He deactivated the display. You are dismissed, Cadet Park. Get some rest. As Jiho turned to leave, the commander added, and cadet, well done. Word of the human cadet's achievement spread quickly throughout the academy. In the dining hall the next day, Jiho found himself surrounded by curious cadets from all years asking questions about the raft and the journey. Even species that had previously avoided him now sought his company. Is it true you built a compass using only water and a piece of metal? Asked an impressed senior cadet. And you expanded the raft to save more cadets? Asked another. Jiho answered their questions simply, without boasting. His roommates, Tae, Suk, and Dae, added details he omitted, proud to have been part of the experience. The human showed us that technology isn't always the answer, Dae explained to the crowd, his tentacles moving expressively. Sometimes you need to think with your hands, not just your devices. 1 year later, the Galactic Academy of Sciences and Defense held a special ceremony. The main training hall had been decorated with symbols from various worlds, including, for the first time, the blue and green flag of Earth. Commander June stood on the platform addressing a new group of first-year cadets, which included 5 more humans who had been accepted after Jiho's success. The academy exists to prepare the brightest minds for the challenges of space, the commander said. For centuries, we believed that meant mastering the most advanced technology. Events last year proved us wrong. He gestured to where Jiho stood, at the side of the platform, now wearing the uniform of a senior cadet with a training officer's insignia. Cadet Officer Park demonstrated that true mastery comes not from relying on technology, but from understanding when to use it, and when to set it aside. This year we introduce a new required course for all cadets: Primitive Technologies and Adaptive Thinking. Jiho stepped forward as his name was called. Looking out at the audience, he saw his former roommates in the front row. Tae, once fearful of water, now helped instruct water survival techniques. Suk had incorporated earth engineering principles into her advanced designs. Dee had become fascinated with human communication methods that worked without technology. Even more surprising were the faces behind them. Cadets from worlds known for their technological superiority, now eager to learn primitive human methods that had proven so effective. The greatest technology in the universe, Jiho began his address, is not a ship or a computer or a weapon. It's the problem-solving mind. When ships lose power, when computers fail, when weapons malfunction, the mind can still find a way forward. That's what I hope to teach you all. Later that evening, Jiho stood at a viewing window similar to the one where he had first seen Aquarius a year earlier. The planet's twin suns were setting, turning the endless oceans a deep orange gold. Commander June joined him, standing silently for a moment before speaking. When Earth joined the Galactic Union, many worlds questioned what humans could contribute. We have faster ships, more powerful computers, more advanced medicine. Jiho nodded but kept his eyes on the sunset. Now I understand, the commander continued. Humans bring something we had forgotten in our race for technological advancement. You bring adaptability, creativity, the willingness to try simple solutions when complex ones fail. We had to learn those lessons the hard way on Earth, Jiho replied. We made many mistakes along the way. Perhaps that is why you value those lessons so highly, Commander June said. And perhaps that is why you will be such an important part of our future among the stars. As darkness fell over Aquarius, lights came on throughout the academy, some powered by the most advanced technology in the galaxy, but now backed up by simpler systems inspired by human designs. The Galactic Academy had changed, becoming stronger, by embracing both the advanced and the basic, the complex and the simple. And humanity had found its place among the stars, not as the most technologically advanced species, but as one with unique and valuable perspectives. In the end, that was all Jiho had hoped to prove.